So tomorrow the November session will start. 明日で11月のセッシンが始まりますけれども、セッシンの前に質問などありませんか? Is there anything you want to ask before the session starts? 明日からは基本的無言なので、今のうちにはっきりさせたいことがあったら何でも聞いてください。So from tomorrow we try to be completely silent for 5 days. If there's anything you want to clarify, you should do that now. 何もないでしょうか? No questions. Good. For some of you, I think it's the first session, and you already heard how to get into the hall and where to sit and when to bow and how to turn. What was not explained yet is what you're actually doing when you sit there. From 4 to 5 it will be 1 hour, and then the following 14 periods are 45 minutes. So what do you do during that time that you spend on the cushion? Or during walking meditation? First about, well, the posture. Probably most of you know the basics, but you have this cushion, and if you can sit in full lotus. That's often the preferred meditation posture if you can do it. Dogen Zenji advises to first put the right foot on top of the left thigh and then the left foot on top of the right thigh. You can also do it the other way around. But if you don't have some experience, this is probably impossible to do. And if you can do it for, say, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you have to switch, it's better not to start like this in the first place. But like, if you feel comfortable sitting like this for a couple of periods, then of course you can do it. Probably also the experienced practitioners will notice that after a couple of periods it starts to hurt really bad. So you can also sit in half lotus. If this is your first session, then don't try it in full lotus in the first place. Either with the left foot or the right foot. Dogen Zenji says only the left foot, but you can also sit with the right foot up from time to time. What I noticed with myself, you have this cushion here, and what I noticed is when I sit in full lotus, I like to have it kind of flat. So I sit like this, and the cushion is kind of flat. For me, that's just right to sit in a stable way. But if I sit in half lotus, and usually during the session I sit in half lotus all the time, then this is not high enough. So you also might try to find out the right height for you. In this case, what I do is basically I move this a little bit like this. Now I sit higher. And then it's easier for me because in half lotus, one of my feet is under the thigh here. So I need more height. What you can do to improve the height of the zafu, you can, for example, use a belt or string something to tie it, then it gets higher. Or we have quite a lot of zafus, you can pack 2 on each other so that you have more height. And you can also sit in the so-called Burmese posture, which would be in Japanese just agura. When you sit in agura, basically what you do is you sit like this. Or what some people prefer is a kneeling posture, like Japanese seiza, but with the cushion between the buttocks, so that their knees and ankles don't hurt so much. This is also possible, and maybe during the sesshin you want to sit some periods like this and maybe some other periods in half lotus or in Burmese posture. If possible, try to sit in the same posture for the whole period. So try not to change during the zazen period. So if you start sitting like this, try to sit until the bell rings at the end, like this. And then if you prefer to sit in a different posture, the next period, you can try a different posture during the next period. We also have a number of these benches. You can also bring those to zazen and sit like this. Whatever posture you choose, you will probably after a while notice that it will hurt somewhere. So probably there's no posture which allows you to sit completely without pain. But also you don't have to torment yourself. So if you cannot sit in lotus posture, don't try to sit in lotus posture. If you can, then that's a good posture to sit in. But if this is the only posture you can sit in, that's also okay. But even if you sit on the bench, you will have pain. So you need to be prepared for that. Tomorrow at this time, you're going to be in great pain. And day after tomorrow, on the second day, you're going to be in even greater pain. And what sometimes happens is you start to count the number of periods, and the whole retreat ends on the fifth day at 3 o'clock, so that makes 70 periods. And maybe at the end of the second day you realize, oh, it's only 30 periods. I even haven't sat through half of the session. And then on the third day at breakfast you reach period 35, but still it's only half. You're only half through, and it's going to get worse after this. So one thing you can do is stop counting the periods and just sit for one period at a time. So forget about the whole rest. If you calculate already in your mind, it's almost like in mathematics integration. You kind of integrate about all that zazen that's still ahead of you, then it becomes unbearable. So sit for only one period at a time. Tell yourself, I'm going to sit this one period, and even if it's my last one. And as Eko-san said, you're not supposed to bring a watch into the hondo. But if you're sitting close to Eko-san, maybe you can take a peek at the clock, and sometimes then you see, oh, it's only 2 more minutes. I can do it. So that's great. If you're waiting for the bell to ring, that you see 2 more minutes. Oh, I can do that. But sometimes it also happens that you take a look at the clock and it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then you go like, that's impossible. How can I do that? So, I mean, the best thing, of course, is not to look at the clock in the first place, but if even one period of zazen seems to be too long, just sit for 1 minute at a time. Just sit for 1 minute, or say 1 second at a time. Because usually, even if the pain seems so big that it kills you, you feel that if it kills you. During the last 30 years I've been in Antaiji, nobody actually died during the session. But sometimes it feels as if this is killing you. But then if you ask yourself, can I do it for 1 more second? Then usually the answer is yes. So if it feels unbearable, make up your mind to sit for 1 more second. And then 1 more second and another second. And 60 seconds make 1 minute. So what would that be? 2,700 seconds, and you got 1 period of Zazen. And that times 70. And the session is over. What you can also do, if you can, it's not so easy, but in that moment where you feel like this is killing me, remind yourself that you're gonna die anyway. You will die. You don't know when and where, but why not in Antaiji, November 2019? It's a beautiful place to die. Why not? We have nice weather prognosis for this session, so why not in this beautiful autumn weather here in Antaiji? And usually that makes things much easier if you sit there and tell yourself, well, I might as well die right now during this period of Zazen. While if you sit there with the attitude, okay, I'm gonna give my best, but I don't want to die, you'll be in great pain, because on the 3rd day, at this time, you feel exactly like this. It's gonna kill me, it's gonna kill me, this is killing me. So that's a big step, but if you can make it, I recommend that you make up your mind to die here during the following retreat. But let me get back to the posture. You don't have to sit in full lotus at full price. Even on the bench, probably you get to that point where you feel this is killing me. Why am I doing this? I could have done so much better things with these 1 week of my life and with this amount of money. Why am I doing this to myself? You'll get to that point, and the best thing you can do is let go. Now when you sit, and you sit, for example, in half lotus, one thing that's important is that your pelvis is bent a little bit forward, so your weight is not resting on the buttocks alone. If your weight is on the buttocks alone, your knees tend to float in the air. So the pelvis bone is bent a little bit forward, and that helps to have the knees on the mat and your posture. Well, Dogen says you should sit stable like a mountain. So you don't have that stability if you sit like this. You have to bend the pelvis a little bit forward. It's a little bit also like a pyramid. So the knees and the buttocks support you. And the spine should be straight. You don't have to make an effort to stretch the spine, but you also should make sure that you don't sit like this. It should be in a natural way. The spine stretches upward, the back of the neck stretches upward. And it also helps in the beginning, what we did, this movement from left to right. So before you start to do Zazen, you do this movement where you swing your upper body left and right, And some people say you do that 7 or 8 times, but there's no strict rule. And at the end, you might not know yourself, and people who watch you wouldn't be able to recognize if you're still moving, or if you have already entered and started to do Zazen, because the movement becomes very subtle. And this helps the body to find its center, so that helps your body to ground to a certain degree. So if you don't do that, sometimes there's people who start to sit right at once without this movement. I think it's very hard to get grounded if you don't do this. While if you do this and you allow your body to find its center and give this a certain time, you use 30 seconds or maybe a whole minute for this movement, then it can help you to get grounded. The hands, traditionally you hold them like this. You have the right hand down and then have the left hand on top. The thumbs touch straight. And it often happens if you're tense and you put too much strength into this practice, that your thumbs move up like this. While if you get sleepy, drowsy, your thoughts wander off, your mind wanders off, your thumbs tend to hang down like this, or they go like this. So try to keep them straight. And just as with the feet, it doesn't have to be the left foot on top always. Right now I got the right foot on top. With the hands, if you prefer, you can also change them. If I have the right foot on top, I usually have the left hand on top. So in this case, I prefer to sit like this. But if I sit the other way around, when I have the left foot on top, I prefer to have it the other way around. So in this case, I have my right hand on top like this. The reason is that there's this opening here. So if I put the right hand here and then the left hand on top, there's, for my feeling, too much pressure on this hand. So in this case, I prefer to have my hands like this. Well, you can experiment with that if you want, if it makes a difference for you. If not, it's not super important. But I personally, I prefer to also change the hands from time to time, not only the feet. With the eyes, it is said that you should keep them half open. In many meditation techniques, you close the eyes, and people say that helps them to concentrate on themselves or on the inside. But in Zen, there's no inside or outside. So when you have the eyes open and you see a wall there and you see the tatami mats, that's also you. That's also the landscape of Zazen. So there's no reason to keep the eyes closed, to concentrate on yourself. When you see something like that wall, that's also part of reality, the reality that we keep our mind on during Zazen. But sometimes it helps people to calm down, or to relax if they have their eyes closed. So if that works for you better, you can also close them completely. But there's also the danger of falling asleep or of starting to dream. If that's the case, you can also have them open normally. Like it is said, keep them half closed, but nobody knows what half closed is exactly. So you can have them normally open, and maybe that helps you to stay awake, but then if you start to think a lot or you become more tense, then keep them a little bit more closed. So also with the eyes, you can experiment with that and find out for yourself if it makes a difference or not. Nobody checks how you have your eyes. With the breath, you don't have to breathe in any special way, although usually we say breathe with a diaphragm. So if you have the habit to breathe with the breast like this, maybe relax a little bit more. Don't breathe from the breast, but breathe from what in Japanese is called the hara, the lower abdominal area. And often it's also said to emphasize the breathing out, the exhalation. So rather than first breathe in, you exhale quietly, and at the end of the exhalation you breathe in again. And from my experience, usually the exhalation is much longer than in the inhalation. You don't have to make it like that, but usually you breathe out for quite a while and then you breathe in again, but the inhalation is probably not quite as long as the exhalation. But you don't have to force the breath to be in any special way. Relax, concentrate on abdominal breathing, and then just allow the breath to happen naturally. So you don't have to breathe, you allow breath to happen. And with the mind, it's quite a lot like with the breath. So you don't have to do anything special with the mind. What you probably notice tomorrow, or what you probably already noticed if you have experience with meditation, is that there will be a lot of thoughts, memories, emotions, feelings like hunger or cold or boredom, fatigue, that come up during Zazen. And maybe you heard somewhere or you read in a book that during Zazen you're supposed to have an empty mind. And then you're surprised, where's this empty mind that they talk about in the books? Normally my mind is not so full, but now that I'm sitting here on the cushion, where do all these thoughts come? Where do all these thoughts come from? How come that I have all these thoughts? And I want to get rid of these thoughts. Well, it's probably not because of Zazen that you start to have all these thoughts. It's because during Zazen your mind calms down and you become more clear, that you realize how many thoughts occupy your mind. It's just like now when I'm talking, you hear me talking, you hear my voice, but you don't hear any other sounds. When I stop talking, you hear there's some people moving around, there's some insects outside. The insects don't start to chirp because I shut up. It's just that while I'm talking, you don't hear the insects. And when I quiet down, you hear all these noises that before you didn't notice. Osawaki Roshi says, when you're dancing drunk with a geisha and there's some, how do you say, lice or fleas that bite you on your testicles, you wouldn't even notice because you're so busy dancing with the geisha. But if you're doing zazen and the same thing happens, it's almost like the end of the world. I have to do something about these lice on my testicles. And that's the same with the thoughts in our minds. It's not that they pop up because we do the zazen. It's because we do zazen that we realize all that stuff that's occupying our minds. And I usually use the metaphor of sheep on a meadow, and we're surprised when we see how many sheep there are on the meadow. And next moment we think I have to do something about the sheep. If I don't do anything about the sheep, they might go into the vegetable garden and eat all the carrots, or they might trample all these flowers in the flower garden. So you pretend to be the shepherd and you decide I have to build a fence around the sheep. And then if you take a good look, you see it's not all white sheep, it's also black sheep. So I have to separate the white sheep and the black sheep and make sure that they don't mix. But although you try your best to separate them, the sheep don't want to be separated, and you finally think that you build your fence and the sheep jump over the fence again. So the sheep don't want to be controlled by the shepherds, but the shepherd wants to control the sheep. So after a while you get so dissatisfied with the sheep that you say, I'm gonna slaughter all these sheep and make hamburgers out of these sheep. I'm gonna kill them all, and then finally I'm gonna have my empty mind, quiet mind. But, well, the sheep are more clever than the shepherds. The shepherd can't get a grip on the sheep. And when you ask yourself, who's causing all that chaos on the meadow? At first you thought it's the sheep that are causing the chaos. But if you take a close look, you see it's actually the shepherd. So first thing during Zazen is stop playing the shepherds. Give the shepherd a break. If that seems to be too difficult a task, so if you think that, well, what can I do than play the shepherd? I need to identify with the shepherd. Well, one thing you can do is, for example, watch your breath. Watch how you exhale and inhale again. Another thing you could do is to just hear all the sounds that you can hear in that moment, without even labeling those sounds, without saying, oh, now those are the insects out there and I hear a crow. Just let the sounds in and concentrate on the sounds. Or you can concentrate on the physical awareness, either on one point, like for example you can concentrate on that point where the thumbs touch. Often if it's in the middle of Zazen, you might be surprised that actually the thumbs that in the beginning supposedly were like this have moved like this, or they're not touching at all. And then, well, one thing is you can concentrate on this point. If you feel very sleepy, sometimes it's recommended that you concentrate on the top of the head, or you can concentrate on the tanden, that's 3 centimeters below your navel, or you can also try to focus on the whole physical presence. In the metaphor with the sheep and the shepherd, that would be like the shepherd taking a break under a big tree that's growing in the middle of the meadow. And the shepherd looks up into the branches and listens to the sounds of the birds. And then maybe the shepherd looks far away and sees the mountains far away and concentrates on the mountains, focuses on the mountains, maybe on one peak or maybe on the whole mountain range altogether. And in that moment, the sheep stop disturbing the shepherd. So concentrating on the breath or concentrating on the sounds, concentrating on the physical presence helps you to stay in the moment and to forget about the thoughts. But ideally in Zazen, we try to open our awareness to everything that's happening in the moment, including the thoughts. So concentrating on one aspect of the here and now, like the breath, or like the sound, or like the physical presence, can be helpful in the beginning, but ideally you allow the whole panorama to manifest, including the thoughts. That would be like stopping to identify with the shepherd and watching the whole scenery from the perspective of the sky. So you see the shepherd, but you see also the sheep on the meadow. You see everything. You see that tree, you see the mountains far away. You see all of that and allow it to be. So you don't take control. That's the big difference to playing the shepherd. The shepherd always tries to have control over what he sees, and you just let it be. That might not be so easy in the beginning, but with a little practice, I think you can do that. You get better at it. When you realize I cannot control the sheep, it also is not necessary to control the sheep. I just let them be. The only thing you need to be a little bit careful about is these sheeps, and the sheep, they stand for your emotions, for your thoughts. They usually they try to take you with them. So thoughts and emotions are also something that's happening in the here and now, but they have the tendency to take your mind somewhere out of the here and now. So at the beginning it might seem quite easy to just be the sky and watch the whole scenery, but then 3 minutes later, 5 minutes later, you realize you're completely somewhere else. So if that happens, come back to what is happening in this moment. And if it seems too difficult to take the perspective of the sky, you can start with only the breath, or only the sounds, or only your body. If you learn to take the perspective of that neutral observer, the sky, and you get better at that, you might realize a different difficulty. That difficulty being that out of a sudden there's this second you, the observer. So you are sitting there with your thoughts and with your perception, and then there's this neutral observer who tries to be aware of the whole scenery. Maybe you even start to give yourself grades about how neutral and aware you are. Oh, now I'm watching the whole scenery and I don't take any control. And it's going pretty well. Out of a sudden you become very attached to this observer. And it's different from when you played the shepherd, but not so different. When you were the shepherd, you tried to take control of the sheep, and you were happy when you thought you got them all in your fence. Now you're the neutral observer. You don't try to control the sheep, but still you try to do your job well. Congratulate yourself when you think, oh, now I'm really detached and I see things as they are. So at one point you need to let go of this second self, this observing self as well. That's what I call becoming one with the meadow. So you let go of the shepherd, but you also let go of the perspective of the sky, and you become one with the meadow. That means you allow the sheep to trample on you, to feed on you, to shit on you if they want to. Please do anything you want with me. So that's the attitude of the mind. When you notice all these sheeps in your mind, let them be. At first try to observe them just the way they are. If that's too difficult, just observe your breath or the sounds or the body. If you have learned to observe them, try to even let go of the observer, become one with that space where the sheep are. Don't identify with the sheep, don't identify with the shepherd, but just be the space where they are. And for example, right now I was talking about emotions, thoughts, feelings like hunger or cold or whatever. What probably on the second and third and fourth day is going to be the biggest topic is pain. So the whole thing is also true for pain. What you can do when you're in great pain is finally only to allow the pain to be there. Fighting the pain won't work. You can grind your teeth and count the seconds until the end of the Zen period. It might work for a couple of times. But then your jaw and your teeth will start to hurt from grinding. And moving around on the cushion helps, usually in that instant, for a couple of seconds, for a couple of minutes, maybe, but then the pain comes back. So at one point you realize fighting doesn't help, escaping doesn't help either. What can I do to get rid of the pain? And the answer is, of course, well, to accept the pain. The only thing you can do is accept the pain. Allow the pain to, in a way, swallow you up. At one point, the pain becomes so big that, well, it swallows you up. But then it's not really a problem anymore because you don't have to fight it anymore. Can't escape it anymore. And you might be surprised that, well, I'm still here, I'm still sitting here, even after pain swallowed me up. In the midst of the pain, I'm still sitting here. Yeah. Any questions? 英語はあんまりわからないですよね。じゃあ簡単に日本語でも言いますと、姿勢については骨盤がちょっと前へ倒れるような姿勢を、作ります。お尻だけでこの座布に乗っかかると膝が浮くので安定した姿勢で座れないので、山のようなピラミッドのような姿勢を目指します。背骨は、無理に伸ばすんじゃなくて自然に、伸びていく感じ、自分の首の後ろも自然に伸びて、そこに力入れる必要はない。かといってこうしてだらっとなるのもあまり良くないけれども、自然に伸びてくる。そうなるために座禅の前の左右腰心、左右にこの上半身を振るという動きも大事です。7、8回振るという人もいますけれども、特に上限はないんですね。何回振るったっていいんです。30秒とか1分間ぐらいかけてもいい。最後にはまだ上半身が動いているか動いてないのかわからないぐらいな微妙な動きになると思いますが、この左右腰心を丁寧にすることによって体がある程度自らの中心を見つけて、下に根を張るような形で安定した姿勢になると思います。呼吸は自分がするというよりも自然に行われるように、腹式呼吸、下っ腹でゆっくり吐いてまた吸う。おそらく吸う息よりも吐く息が長くなると思いますが、無理して深く吐こう、長く吐こうと思わなくて結構です。で、心に関しても、無心とか無念無想とかこういう言葉があると思いますね。無心とか、無念。無念無想だとか無心だとかいう言葉がありますけれども、座禅していると心の中にいつも何か湧いてくると思います。思いであったり感情であったり、私の例えでは羊の群れですね。今までいなかったはずの羊の数に驚く人もいます。でも座禅のせいで雑念だとか思いが増えるんじゃなくて、心が落ち着くからこそこれに敏感になってくると思います。今喋っているから私の声以外は聞こえないけれども、黙っていると人が動いたり、虫の声が聞こえたり、それまで全く気づくことなかった音に耳を澄ますことになるんですね。座禅の時も 雑念に気づいたということは、それだけ心がクリアになった、落ち着いたという証拠ですね。ところが、羊の存在に気づくと、今度は羊飼いの役を演じなければいけないと思ってしまう。フェンスを作ってみたり、黒いやつと白いやつを分けてみたり。ところがやってもうまくいかない。しまいにはみんな殺してミンチにしてしまいたいというけれども、一番の問題は誰かというと、羊飼いの自分ですね。この羊飼いをちょっと一服させなければいけない。そのためには、例えば呼吸を見つめるとか、音の世界に耳を向けるとか、頭のてっぺんから足の裏までの感覚を味わうという手もあります。これは先の例えで言うならば、大きな木の下で羊飼いが大の字になって枝を見上げて鳥たちの声を聞いて、あるいは時には遠いところにある山脈を見渡しているようなものです。それをやっていると、この羊たち、周りの羊たちに気を取られることはなくなる。ところが、座禅では全部見渡したい、景色全体を見渡したいので、いつまでたっても呼吸だけとか虫の音だけ、自分の体の感覚だけを味わうじゃ、面白くないというか、実生活に戻った時にはあまり役に立たないので、この思いや感情も含めて全部見渡すという視点を持ちたい。それは例えて言うならば、先までは羊飼いをやってた人は、私は羊飼いをやる必要はないんだと。空の視点から全部見渡す。で、羊たちは相変わらずそこでいたずらしているかもしれないけれども、それに手をつけない。羊飼いも相変わらずそこに走り回っているかもしれないけれども、あいつは俺じゃないんだと。そういう姿勢で全部見渡す。最初は難しいけれども、慣れてくると、少しずつできるようになると思います。気をつけないと羊たちに拉致されて遠いところまでついていかれることもある。それに気づいたら今ここに戻る。できるならば連れていかないけれども、羊たちの存在はちゃんと認める。羊たちは手をつけない。ついていかないんだけれども、無視もしない。で、そこで起こるかもしれない一つの問題は、今度はこの冷静に距離を置いている空の自分に執着しだすんですね。俺は羊たちではない、羊飼いでもない、遠いここから冷静に見つめているだけだと。でそれがうまくできていると思った時に、自分に点数をつけてみたり、今の座禅は80点までいってるかもしれない、もう少ししたら90点、これだけ冷静になったのは今までなかったと、すごくマインドフルになっているんだと。前の羊飼いの状態と違う。羊飼いは羊たちを管理しようとしたけれども、今は管理するんではなくて、ただ冷静にありのままに見つめている。ただ自分に点数つけている時点では、まだ同じ穴の無地なですね、羊飼いと。まだここでマインドフルネスをやっている、座禅をしている、冷静に見つめている自分に執着している。 だからこの冷静に見つめている自分もまた手放さなくちゃいけない。じゃあどうしたらいいかというと、草原そのものになればいいと私は言うんですね。草原そのものになって、羊たちに踏まれようが、草を食われようが、うんこを垂らせようが、どうぞ好きなようにやってくれ。私を好きなようにやってくれ。痛みというのもそうですね。今から2日後、3日後、相当痛いと思います。下手したら死ぬかもしれないと思う。でもどうせ死ぬんだ。いつどこで死ぬかわからないけれども、今回の11月のリトリート、安泰寺で死んでもいいじゃないか。死ぬにしてはちょうどいい場所、ちょうどいい時期かもしれない。それは要するに草原になること。もうどうにでもなる。どうぞ私を好きなようにしてくれと。この痛いという思いにのめり込まれて、もう死ぬと思ったその瞬間には楽になっちゃうんですね。痛みに飲まれて、でもまだ座っているじゃないか。痛いという思いの中にちゃんと座禅が座禅している。なかなか難しいと思いますが、それを目指していただければと思います。5日間の接心、全部で70回の座禅です。間違ってもしてほしくないことの一つは、いつも頭の中で計算して今何中目。例えば明日の夜だと15中目。明後日2日目の夜は30中目。で、相当痛い。まだ30中目。70分の30。まだ半分までいってない。そうしたらもうとてもじゃないけれども最後まで座ろうという気持ちになれない。時計もそうです。時計はないから時間は確認できないけれども、エコさんの隣に座っていればちょっと覗くことはできる。あと2分だということになると、それならできる。あと2分は頑張れる。あと20分となるとまさか。だから一周一周、もうこれが最後だと思って座ってもらおう。それも無理だと思ったら、じゃあ1分だけ、あと最後の1分だけ座ろう。1分も長いというならば、じゃあ1秒だけ。1秒、あと1秒座れるかというと、大概座れると思いますね。あと1秒ぐらい。でさらに1秒。おまけにもう1秒。60回それを繰り返したら1分。2700回繰り返すと、一周の座禅がちゃんと終わる。それを70回繰り返したら、キャンプファイヤーで酒が飲めると。はい、簡単です。1秒の座禅を。何回ですかね。15万回ぐらいですか。終わってしまえば、どういうことはない。はい、大体こんなことです。座禅の心構え。何か座禅について、摂心について質問があったらどうぞ何でも聞いてください。If you have any questions about Zazen or the sesshin, please ask.
What is the reason or the rationale about not taking baths?
Well, Zazen doesn't kill you, not taking a shower for 5 days won't kill you either. I mean, yeah, we all stink a little bit after 5 days without a shower, but it doesn't kill us. Can also happen like Japanese prefer to not only take a shower but also have a full bath, and it helps to relax, but also you very easily then lose the focus. Like in Antaiji in December we have this week-long Rohatsu session which lasts until midnight of the 7th day. And 30 years ago when I first came to Antaiji, we had a bath once on the 4th day at night, on the middle day. People were looking forward to it because, well, the session is cold and finally you have bath on the 4th day. That means that also the 4th day was one period shorter. So from 8 to 9 there was no zazen, but you could take the bath. But it was very easy to lose the focus. Then on the 5th day in the morning it was not the same. So I think that's also part of the reason why we say for 5 days only sitting, and you got these 2 meals and you can go to the toilet of course if you want to, but apart from that, stay focused on your practice. I mean, of course you can stay focused and still have a hot shower, but it's very easy to lose that focus. So I think that's also one part of the answer. The other part is, well, if it's not really necessary to do it, why do it? Yes, please.
I found sometimes, I don't know if you've seen this before, but to reduce the fatigue in my legs, I'll sometimes put a strap on my legs to keep them from splaying out.
Yes.
And it keeps them from getting tired so easy.
Yes.
Is that something that you've seen or done yourself?
Not in Japan, but when I was still a student in Berlin, one of the persons they did that. And why not? Why not? So I'm not against experimenting to a certain degree, and if it works for you, why not? Yes, please.
Yeah, during zazen, what you usually notice is there is no you as something, not like a sky, not like as landscape, not like something else, maybe some point of anything, but that's not you either. The question is, how can we compromise this with maintaining bodhisattva life or some Vo's life, adult practice, whatever you name it, that is something you do deliberately? Well, basically, who does it deliberately?
Who does it deliberately? I mean, you talked about this sense of there being no me. So there's the sounds, there's the landscape, the things you see. There might be a smell or taste in your mouth. But none of that is me. But I mean, there's still the awareness of that. Now, if you ask who's making this deliberate step to live as a bodhisattva, I think, well, it occurs, kind of this wish or that determination. I'm gonna do it. Well, who is this? Who speaks there? Who says, I'm gonna live? What I, for example, last month called re-entering the game. So the first step, basis of Zazen is you stop the game, you quit the game. And what I mean basically was what I call is you become one with the metal. You don't play around on the meadow, but you become the meadow. That means to quit the game. But if you're the Jikido, you also have to keep track of the time. And somebody has to ring the bell. Who's gonna do that? Well, if you don't do it, it's gonna be a problem.
Well, sometimes it just feels like your bells are ring, but your body moves naturally.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
do you really bells are ring
Yes.
this way?
Yeah, I mean, and with a bell, probably it's not so difficult when you're aware that you are the Jikido, and when the needle moves up to 12, then you don't have to remind yourself, oh, now I have to grab this. You do it. When you're the Tenzo, sometimes also it kind of can work like that. That actually things go almost by themselves. You're in the routine, you know when to start to put the soup on the fire, you know when to set the table, and you don't have to remind yourself each time again to do it right, but things work almost automatically. But also from time to time you have to remind yourself of things or to encourage yourself to do it. Who's doing that? I don't know. I don't know. Where does that come from? Or why is it necessary? You could also say, why is it actually necessary? If we're supposed to just let go and let things to develop by themselves, like just allow Buddha nature to unfold, why should we make an effort?
Yeah, so basically all this talks about making an effort are for people who can understand making an effort through effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get to that point where effort isn't necessary anymore because you're doing just what the moment requires of you, then of course you don't have to make this effort anymore, this Gambalimas attitude. But from my experience, it's not easy to get there in the first place, and even though you might get there, it's almost impossible to stay there 24/7, so to speak, all the time. Yeah. It's nice when you're there and things just do themselves. Like Tenzo just does the Tenzo without you telling yourself, oh, I'm the Tenzo, I have to do my best. But sometimes, yeah, you have to tell you exactly that. Yes, please.
What you thinking about the Kensho and Samadhi and that relative to sesshin and kind of the effort and your intentions towards that? Is there a certain perspective or kind of approach you think is best?
I mean, these things happen, and it's also important, I think, on the way that you have this encouragement, or you have this, how do you say, you know what Dogen writes about, what you find in the books. It's not only fairy tales, this is actually real stuff. This is happening. That's what's happening right now here. On the other hand, if you never had a taste of it, and then you sit there with the intention, now I want also this experience that I heard about, that I read about somewhere, you don't get it. You don't get it. I mean, that's why Sawaki Roshi says the Zen is good for nothing. Let it go. because even this quest for Kensho is just a new game that you play. You have to quit that game as well. It's not only about I want more money, I want more girls, I want a better job game, but you also, that's, I want another Kensho. It's also just part of that game. And so then, sesshin, we try to stop that game. So we're not even looking for an enlightenment experience. And the moment you stop the game and let go, you might realize, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. But usually that's something that happens the moment you let go. It's not that you chase it, and then when you make that super effort, finally you get it, but you feel this is impossible. It's impossible. I can never, ever do it. But then you let go without escaping. So letting go doesn't mean that you walk down to the bus stop and then give up. But it's you let go in this posture. And then you realize it was always there. It was always there. I was sitting right in the midst of it. I was sitting right in the midst of it, and I didn't see because my eyes were fixed on something else. I was looking at the sheep, and I forgot that actually I was the meadow all the time. I was the meadow all the time, and it's just that I kept identifying with this or that aspect. So it's not that Kensho doesn't exist, but I think the healthiest attitude towards Kensho is to even let that go. And if it happens, great. And if it doesn't happen, okay, give it another year or two. And if it happens, don't grab it. Also happens. You have this, maybe this is it. Now, finally, I found it. But then it already starts to evade, and 2 hours later, 3 hours later, you already feel it slipping through your fingers, and the next day it's not there anymore, and then you want it back, and you want it back, and just get back, because you're again in this attitude, I want this, I want to grab it, I want to hold it. So yeah, let go, and accept the reality you're in. With the pain, with the frustration, with the fatigue, with whatever that reality has in store for you. Hai, hoka ni arimasen ka? Anything else? Please.
In this time, when we have all this internet stuff and communication,
Yes.
what would you say about the Zen paradigm of direct transmission of teaching? Is it possible now to just like doing Zazen in your flat somewhere around the world and get somewhere at least with right way? Or it's not something new?
I mean, there's the example of the Buddha who 2,500 years ago got enlightened all by himself.
But
So-
he still had some...
The internet, yeah.
No, internet. Some teachers who explained him something about meditation and all
He had
this
some
stuff.
meditation teachers, I mean, they didn't, they weren't fully enlightened themselves. So
Yes.
he understood their teaching, but then he had to do the final steps by themselves. So if you feel you don't really need a teacher in person, that you can learn the basics on the internet, that's enough. I mean, it's worth a try, but I think for most of us, including myself, it's vital to have a living teacher with whom you spend the days, and not only days but weeks and months and years together. And not only have talks on Skype and listen to talks on YouTube, but you share your life with that person and you get feedback. Like in Antaiji, it's not only Dharma talks, but you get feedback on your cooking skills and on how you put the slippers there and on the work and stuff like that. Some of those things seem to be superficial, but that's actually often what counts. This kind of feedback is much more important than hearing lectures about Shobogenzo and stuff like that. And I mean, yeah, how is an internet teacher going to comment on your cooking skills when he never ate that food that you cooked? Any other questions? Hai, なければこれで終わらせたいと思います。この後まだお風呂入ってない人は、はい、お風呂入っていただいて、明日は3時45分起床、4時から9時まで、そして10時15分から3時、6時15分から9時まで、その間の時間も夜の睡眠時間も一応もう接近ですから、何をやってもいいんじゃなくても全部一中の座禅だと思ってもらって、ですね、5日の3時まで一中の座禅と思ってもらえばありがたいです。So session starts tomorrow at 3:45 and we sit from 4 to 9 and then from 10:15 to 3 and again from 4:15 to 9. 15 periods, but please don't forget that the intervals in between, so also the break time after the meals and at night, the night time where you can sleep, it's also part of the practice. So it would be best if you think about the whole 5 days like one period of zazen, one unit of zazen. So hopefully see all of you alive again at 3 o'clock on the 5th. So I wish you all a good